All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going to break down the essential blueprint for building a real, production-ready AI application. Now, if you're a product manager, the architectural choices we're about to discuss, they're going to define everything that's possible for your product.
So, let's follow the journey of one single prompt from a user, from the moment they hit enter on their screen all the way to the AI-generated response that comes back. Let's really get into what's happening under the hood.
You know, at first glance, the most straightforward path seems to be just plugging your LLM's API key right into your front-end app. Your website or your mobile app just talks directly to the model. Simple, right? Well, it's also incredibly dangerous.
For any real product that you actually want to ship, this direct path from the front end to the LLM is an absolute non-starter. Let's break down exactly why this whole approach completely falls apart the second it goes live.
And folks like Tech with Tim and Qisheng Cheng have talked about this a lot. It is a recipe for disaster. Putting an API key in your front-end code is basically like leaving the keys to your company credit card on a public park bench. Anyone can grab it and just start racking up a massive bill. And beyond that, you have zero product control. You can't switch out models, you can't filter responses for brand safety, you can't manage who gets to use it. You're flying blind.
So what's the solution? Well, we absolutely need a secure, intelligent layer that sits right in the middle between your users and the LLM. And that layer is your backend. It's not just some technical detail. It's your product's command center. This right here is the standard, battle-tested way to build any serious LLM application. The user's prompt goes from their app to your backend server first. Then, your backend securely talks to the LLM. This one simple change gives you a world of control.
I love this analogy. Think of your backend as a combination of a security guard and a really smart concierge. It's a security guard because it keeps your API keys totally hidden and safe. And it's a concierge because it manages everything else. It controls your costs by setting rate limits or user credits. It gives you the flexibility to swap out LLMs whenever you want, and your users won't even notice. And crucially, it lets you filter the LLM's answers and cache common results to dramatically cut your costs and speed things up.
Okay, so our prompt can now travel safely through our backend. That's great, but we've just hit a new wall. See, the LLM is incredibly powerful, but its knowledge is basically frozen in time from when it was trained. It knows nothing about your company's private documents, your latest data, or your user's specific context.
So how do we solve this one? How do we make this general-purpose LLM an expert on your specific world? The answer isn't retraining the whole model from scratch. That is unbelievably expensive and complicated. We need a much, much smarter and more dynamic way to do it.
And the solution is a technique called Retrieval-Augmented Generation. I know, it's a mouthful, so we all just call it RAG. The idea is actually simple and totally brilliant. Think of it like giving the LLM an open book test. Before you ask it a question, you go find the most relevant cheat sheets from your own knowledge base and you hand them over right along with the user's prompt. Now, this slide really gets to the heart of why RAG is such a game changer, especially when you compare it to that other method, fine-tuning. For most product use cases, RAG is the clear winner. Your knowledge base is dynamic. You can add a new document and the system is updated instantly. It's way, way cheaper. It's transparent because you can actually see what information was used to generate an answer. And it massively reduces hallucinations by grounding the model in cold, hard facts. And this quote just nails a key advantage of RAG. It's not just about adding knowledge, it's about adding focus. Instead of just throwing a giant, messy document at the model and hoping it finds the right answer, RAG acts as a filter. It finds just the most relevant little snippets of information. And that focus is exactly why it's often more accurate than models with these giant context windows.
So we get the what and the why of RAG. Now, let's dive into the how. Let's see how this builds directly into the architecture we've already laid out.
Okay, here's the full journey with RAG in the mix. Step 1, the user's query hits your backend. Step 2, and here's the magic, your backend doesn't just pass it along. First, it queries a special vector database, which is really just a database that's great at finding similar concepts to pull out the most relevant info. Step 3, it combines that info with the original question to create a new, supercharged prompt. Step 4, that augmented prompt gets sent to the LLM. And finally, the LLM generates a super relevant, fact-grounded answer which your backend then passes back to the user. So let's take one last look at the complete journey of our prompt and really nail down the key strategic takeaways for you as a product manager.
And here it is. This right here, this is the blueprint for a modern, scalable, and truly intelligent AI-powered app. You go from the user to your backend acting as that control layer to the vector database for knowledge, and finally to the LLM for generation. This is the pattern that just plain works.
So let's land the plane. If you remember nothing else from this, remember these points. First, a backend isn't optional, it is absolutely non-negotiable. It is your product's control plane. Second, RAG is your #1 tool for making your app an expert on your company's private knowledge. Third, remember that this architecture is what makes your features possible. You can't build good cost controls or user permissions without it. Fourth, remember that LLMs themselves are stateless. They have no memory. This architecture lets you build an intelligent system around that stateless model. And finally, cache. Cache aggressively. Seriously, this is one of the biggest levers you can pull to manage your costs. We're talking savings of 50, 60, even 70%.
So look, this structure isn't just some technical diagram on a whiteboard. It's the strategic foundation that's going to let you build the next generation of truly intelligent, context-aware products. The only question now is, what are you going to build on it? Thanks for watching.